Hello cubers and welcome to this video. I'm Bram Bestawsome and this is a video in the Cubing World series How to Get Fast, and today's video will be about the Square-1. This video will hopefully be gauged at people of all levels of Square-1, not just any range. I'll be talking about hardware, methods, techniques, and how to practice on Square-1. So first, I will talk about hardware. There are four kinds of Square-1s that are dominant in the cubing market nowadays. Kelvins, MFA V1, an MFA V2, which I do not have right now, and the Cube Twist. The Kelvin Square-1 is my main Square-1, mainly due to its fluidity. However, it does pop a lot sometimes, so you have to be a bit careful. The Kelvin is actually a recreation of the MFA V1, which could feel a bit different depending on how you lube your Square-1 and do stuff with it. I can't really describe it because the way I prepared the Square-1, it's not similar to any other MFA V1s I've ever held. The MFA V2 was supposed to be an improvement from V1, which is slightly true when you take it out of the box. The MFA V2 has some slight out-of-the-box improvements. However, in the long run, it's a pretty bad Square-1 if you really want to get good, so I wouldn't recommend that. The Cube Twist is very smooth, but it can be a little sluggish, and according to some people, it pops a lot. So if you want a good Square-1, I would say go with either any of these three, although I would prefer these two over the Cube Twist. Not many people use Cube Twist except like Simon Crawford, who's gotten like pretty good averages with it. Cube Twists are like hit and miss. It's pretty hard to get a good one. These, if you want a good MFA V1, good luck finding one. There are some on HK Now store. Yeah, you could try those. But for now, I would say get either one of these two. There are currently two ways of solving the Square-1. One is the Lars-Vandenberg method, and the other is the roux and screw method. The Lars method is very similar to the beginner's method of solving the Square-1. So you first get Cubeshape, and then you orient the corners, and then you orient the edges, and then you would permute the corners here, except I've already got those, and then you would get the edges permuted. That's the Lars-Vandenberg method. The roux and screw method is less used. First, you get it back into a cube, like the Lars method, and then you would get these blocks over here, just like the roux method for 3x3. There's one block, and then let's see, how do I... Right, there we go. So we have a block right there. And then you would solve these corners on top. And then we would orient the edges. And then lastly, solve the edges. The Lars method is much primarily used to get with the fast people that do Square-1, mainly because not many people have gone into the roux and screw method in depth. So for now, I would suggest going with Lars if you want to go fast. However, you can still go look into roux and screw and tell me if how fast you've gotten with it. Next, we will be talking about the stuff that everyone wants to hear about, techniques. The common way average cuber would respond to the question of getting faster at Square-1 would be to learn more algs and slow down and look ahead. But Square-1 has several techniques that many people do not know, and they can make it much faster. These techniques include advanced Cubeshape, preserving edge permutation during coordinate permutation, and parity coordinate permutation. First, I will talk about the first technique I mentioned, advanced Cubeshape. Advanced Cubeshape is what it sounds like, a much faster way of doing Cubeshape in Square-1. The beginner's method of doing Cubeshape is to first pair all 8 edges together and then use an algorithm to get it back into a cube. That sounds pretty simple, but it can be slightly tedious, and there is a much faster way of doing it. The faster way of doing it is, instead of getting all 8 edges, get this shape, which is known as a scallop kite. And then from here you would do an algorithm like this. Now this might sound like it's the same amount of work as this, only more, except that there are more shapes that lead to this instead of the 8 edges. So as an example, if you consider this shape using 8 edges, when you combine 6 edges you have this L, and if you know the 8 edges pretty well, you know that this is a painful case. The faster way of doing it is to notice that you can create a kite like this. This is not a kite. Yeah, you can create a kite with this by first pairing this little L shape with the scallop on top, pairing it up and creating a line like this. Now you have your scallop kite, and then you can do your algorithm. If you want to know more about advanced Cubeshape, I've got a tutorial on Cubing World from Season 1 that I think is pretty helpful. It'll be in the link in the description below. The next technique I'll go into is preserving EP during CP. This doesn't really have an official name, but some people call it Square-1 Lookahead. Basically, how it works is that during CP you can force good edge permutation algorithms. For example, this algorithm, which involves switching these corners and these corners, can be solved by the regular algorithm that everyone knows. Well, at least if you know the alg. That one. Now what happens if you have this? It also needs these 2 corners switched and these 2 corners switched. You can get to edge permutation with that same algorithm, but these edges aren't really solved. This case can be solved using a slight modification of the algorithm. If I offset this by 1, 0, and then do the algorithm from that perspective, it will actually solve the edges. This is a very common technique, and you can use it not just for that algorithm, you can use it for any algorithm, such as this one. You can use it for any algorithm that involves CP, and it only uses only 3 and -3 moves. So for example, you can, for this case, you can offset this by -1 on the bottom, and then do that algorithm as normal, just with slight modifications. Like that. This technique can be used to avoid bad EPs. For example, I guess OW. So yeah, this is a very useful technique. And I also have a tutorial for this on Season 1 of Cubing World that I'll also put in the description. I won't get into it much in this video. You can go watch that video down below. Finally, although I do not use it, Parity CP, my last technique, is a good way to avoid using a parity algorithm during EP. During CP, you can recognize if you have parity or not. Then depending on the way the corners are permuted, you can use an algorithm to fix the parity and permute the corners at the same time. there are only 8 algorithms for this, as opposed to the about 50 algorithms, parity algorithms you have to know for edge permutation. For example, this one. On the top, you can see that I have an A perm of the corners, but on the bottom, there is just an adjacent swap, which is parity on the bottom, but there's no parity on the top, which means there's parity in the cube. There's an algorithm for swapping these two corners and fixing parity at the same time. As you can see, it fixed parity by having an H perm on the top. So this is a very powerful way to affect what EPs you get during CP. I don't use this because for me it's hard to recognize. However, Andrew Nelson, the current Square-1 NAR holder, uses this method and so far has a lot of success with this method. If you want to learn this, I say be a little patient. It may be a little hard to grasp at first, but you'll get it eventually. Another thing I think is really important in speed solving, now that we're done with techniques, is turning styles. Most people, when they ask me how to get fast, I always respond, get used to the puzzle, learn some new algorithms, and develop a good turning style. I see most people, like, if they're not that good at Square-1, they do stuff like this, and then stuff like this. Like this. And they would just, and then they would like turn the bottom with their whole hand. I think that's pretty inefficient. So let me get this solved. It's almost like as if they were solving a 3x3. It's a little, I feel like it's a little too rigid. So if you really want to get fast at Square-1, I suggest you develop a really good turning style. My turning style is like, it involves moves like this that often aren't seen on a 3x3. Yeah, and like stuff like this I often do. And then like I would push this finger like this. So yeah, turning style is definitely important in Square-1. I think it impacts more than like the techniques I've been talking about more. Although those are pretty helpful and you should go learn them. Turning style, yeah. So I suggest you develop your own turning style that allows you to turn pretty fast. My final piece of advice is how to practice well. Square-1 is mostly often viewed as a lot of algorithms, but I would suggest just go easy with the algorithms. When you're practicing solving Square-1 and you come across a case that you really don't like and is really annoying, like for example, this one, where there's an adjacent on the bottom and a U-perm on the top. I used to do this normally, like just swap these two and then do the adjacent parity, but I thought that was pretty annoying. So instead I just learned the algorithm for this and made sure it was pretty good. That's how you can get pretty fast at Square-1, by learning good algs for annoying cases. The same goes for Cubeshape. So for example, with the scalp kite method, it can be used to solve a lot of things, but for some cases, for example, this one where you have a shield on the top and a kite on the bottom, using the scalp kite method could be a little hard. Yeah, and the best way to solve this is just to use an algorithm for it, or at least the standard procedure, so that you can solve it from any orientation. So for this, I would turn it into a shield square like that, and then I know the algorithm for a shield square. That is how you can practice very efficiently. And become much faster. There are some EPs that you should know. For example, this adjacent alg you should already know from the beginner's method. The opposite algorithm, it's just M2 like that, U2, M2. Another one you should know is let's see, this one. We have a U-per on the top and another U-per on the bottom. It should be oriented like this. And the algorithm goes like the other one is true. If you have the other direction U-perm, you would do it like this. You should also know wow. Okay. So you should know this algorithm, opposite on top, adjacent on bottom. And you should know the other way. Those are just some examples of EPs you should know. If you have an EP and you're looking for a good algorithm for it, you can either comment on this video or you can personal message me. My username is BrandBestAwesome, or you could search the web for it. Pretty sure there are tons of algorithms out there. Alright guys, that's all I have for this video. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please message me, BrandBestAwesome, or you can leave a comment in this video. I hope this video helped you. Thank you to Noah of Cubing World for letting me make this video for Cubing World. And see you guys next time.